Poorly Made Sushi by Haoli Gaijin. First, I had to set up the kitchen and the cameras. I was getting ready, putting things where they needed to be. Ended up needing more light, so I had to bring in the lighting equipment and set up. Pulled out everything I needed. I needed rice, of course, to make sushi. A little wooden bowl I used to put the rice in and mix it up really well. I used the rice cooker. Yes, I'm from Louisiana. I know how to make rice without the rice cooker. But for today's project, we used the rice cooker. Didn't need the pineapple, but it's there anyway. As we move over to the left, you can see my measuring cups, some of the different sauces and such that I used. I did not use the toki today. Ended up not needing it. I used the sriracha instead, and that'll show up here in a second. I used the low sodium soy sauce. I don't know if it really makes that big of a difference, but it makes me feel good. The rice vinegar I use when I'm making the rice. Some ponzu and some sriracha. I use those two together to make a spicy mayo sauce that I like to put on some of my sushi pieces or inside them occasionally. There's my nori down there at the bottom. It's a lot of sheets in that little pack, more than I'll probably ever need. And some plum wine and sake. Well, because you gotta have them. You don't actually need them to make the sushi, but you have to have them when you're eating sushi. It just feels right. Now I have my big bamboo cutting board, cucumber, mango. I bought 2 avocados. I really only needed one, ended up using one. Got my rolling little bamboo roller there, and my lightsaber, Darth Vader lightsaber chopsticks, because why not? Put all this stuff together. Of course, I had to have the fish too, and I end up for today just using some tuna and some quote crab unquote sticks. We'll explain that as we get a little further into today's project. Now, first I made the rice. I used the vinegar with the rice when I was cooking it, and I also added a little afterward, stirred it up really good. The wooden bowl helps dry the rice a bit while I was stirring it up, but it was still warm, and of course it needs to cool. So after stirring it up really good, I laid it out to the side, put a wet rag over it to help it keep from drying out, waited for it to cool. And while we're waiting for it to cool, cut up some vegetables. The cucumber. Really only needed a half a cucumber today, and I don't even think I used the whole half of it. Cut the little nub off the end because it's not too great. And slice this in half once again, so you start off with about a quarter of it, and we're going to use both of these, but one at a time. Slice them in half and in quarters. And we're going to, little by little, we're going to take the seeds out of them. You don't have to take the seeds out. You can do it fine with the seeds in it. But it's a little more appealing. Slice the little seeds out of it. Once I figure out how my hands work. And lay them off to the side. The little seeds you can keep. You can put them in a salad. You can put them in little other projects. So you don't throw them away. Just put them off to the side while you slice off the little pieces of cucumber for your sushi. Now these pieces are a little too big, so if it's a thick piece like this one, I end up cutting it down into, I'm trying to move out of the way so you can get more light and see what's going on. My hand was in the way. But a large chunk, I'll try to slice into 4 pieces. Oh, sticks to the knife. Some smaller ones you'll only slice into 3. You see, gives it a nice little bitty piece. You can put that in your sushi when you're making it, and it won't be too overwhelming or too large for you to be able to roll up. Won't stab through your nori. They still got a little bit of seeds on them, so I'm going to go ahead and slice a little bit of seeds off. Keep them in the bowl. Now pull out the avocado, and most everybody knows how to do an avocado, but I only learned how to do this recently. So I'm going to go ahead and show. All the way around the perimeter, slice it all the way around until you've got it all the way. Down inside is the big heart. You just kind of squeeze it and twist a little bit, and one half will pop off. And you smack that with your knife. Now I hit it off center, so I just ended up cutting a piece off instead of actually getting it in there well, but now that I got it in there, you can dig the knife in a good little ways, and then you kind of grab the knife and grab the avocado and twist it a little bit, and the big seed pops out. Pull the seed off. Yeah, you're not going to use that for anything. And next we're going to slice some avocado out of what you got that half. But I need a butter knife, and I forgot. So I had to go find a butter knife. And there it is. Now, holding it, keeping it, use your knife. You can slice down into it, slice a piece off. Now that's a kind of weak slice right there. So I ended up doing another one that's a little bit more robust. You want a good slice. Avocado, some good stuff. You're going to put it in your sushi. So a good thick slice. That's what the slice should look like, not that little dinky first one I did. I checked on the rice, and it was still a little bit too warm to use, so I needed to let it rest a while. I had to figure out what I could do to kill a little time. And I remembered these little guys. They're right there. Yeah, right on the counter. Don't want them to go to waste. Like I said before, you don't need them to make sushi, but they make the sushi making a little more fun. Now the rice has cooled down a bit. I'm going to pull out a sheet of nori here, lay it out on my cutting board. Now you're going to see when you pull it out, one side is shiny and smooth, the other side is not as shiny and a little bit rough. It has some perforations already in it so that you can pull little slabs off and get the size you want. I made my first mistake here. I used the whole sheet. Even though it was missing that little corner, it wasn't quite enough. I used the whole sheet. Now here's my tuna. It is a little 4-ounce piece, but it was cut in a triangle shape, so it makes it a little bit unusual to cut it up for the sushi. Now if I do this again next time, I will right there cut it just like that. Just cut the little end and make them progressively smaller, but I don't know why. For some reason I chose to start at the corner, cut a little chunk off. I ended up just eating that later while I was making the sushi. And then some thin little slices. You don't want them to be too thick. Yeah, see, that one was good, and a couple of the other ones came out. I ended up making a couple near later that were a little too thick. They really should be thin, and you can always put more than one slice on if it's not thick enough, but it's a whole lot easier to add a thin slice than it is to try to take a slice that's a little too thick and fillet it even smaller. I'm going to take that last chunk and use it later. I was going to make a little bit of sashimi. Now, pull out my sheet of nori. Yes, it's too much. It was too big. I didn't cut it down. I should have. I'll do that later. So, grab some rice. Start spreading it out on the nori. Right here, I remembered too late. You're supposed to wet your hands before you grab the rice. Otherwise, that's what happens. You get the rice stuck on your hands. So, brush it off. Dip your hands in some water. I had a bowl of water sitting right there just for that purpose. Just forgot to dip in it. So you dip your hand in the water, and then when you grab the rice, spread it all out. Ta-da! It doesn't stick to your hand. Now, spread all the rice out. Want to cover it. Shouldn't be too thick, maybe 1 or 2 grains thickness, and spread it all out to all the corners. Now you'll see really quickly, here's where I made my second mistake. I put a little too much rice in there. I was worried about not having enough, and as usual, I ended up having too much. So I just spread it out, keep grabbing a little more, a little more. Well, after I grabbed maybe 2 or 3 handfuls, I should have realized, wait a second, I shouldn't be grabbing this many handfuls of rice. It's still okay. It just made a really thick roll. It was still tasty. It was good. I'm making a vegetable roll this first one. I'm not going to be putting a whole lot of anything in it but just some avocado and cucumber. I grab a few little pieces to cover the corners here and there. A little more meticulous than I probably needed to be, but I really haven't done this. I don't have a lot of experience doing this, so I learn by making mistakes. There you go. I left a little piece of the nori uncovered on the end there as kind of an extra little flap, so after I rolled it up, that extra little flap could overlap and not have any rice kind of peeking through the corners. First my avocado, and there's, see that first slice right there, that's about how thick and big it should be. Decent size, and it's not huge, but big. And the little dinky one that I pulled off first in the other half kind of made for an unbalanced piece of sushi, but yeah, it worked. All right, they're both where they need to be. Grab a few pieces of cucumber. Want to make sure that your innards, the inside stuff, is stretching from one edge all the way to the other. And you see I had a little extra rice on the end that isn't covered, so I probably should have gotten one more piece of cucumber and maybe another little bit of avocado. Now here, just roll it up. You don't have to use the bamboo roller. You can do it without one. Just be careful. Make sure your hands are wet so everything doesn't stick. And roll it up. Now, if you use the bamboo roller, it might come out a little bit prettier than mine, but it worked okay. Now, at this point, I realized, wait a second, yeah, this is way too big around. I used too much rice. If I had probably peeled off a couple of perforations, I would have ended up using less rice and less nori. It probably would have worked out better, but it's okay. Make sure your knife is wet. Dip it in some water or something when you're slicing it in half, then in half again, and then each of those quarters you're going to slice in half again till you get 8 pieces. And my GoPro died. I ended up using my cell phone for the rest. It's mostly pictures, not a couple of videos. So, finished slicing it up, positioned everything how I wanted, ended up putting them around on a little plate. It didn't come out bad. It was tasty. It had good filling. I enjoyed it. In addition to the soy sauce, I also made some spicy mayonnaise. These are the ingredients I used. I used the Blue Plate, quote, low-fat, quote, mayonnaise. It's still mayonnaise, so it's basically egg whites and oil mixed together. So even though it is low-fat or half the calories of regular mayonnaise, it's still not good for you. Don't be fooled. But it's good when you make it, so I like to make a little bit. Take a few tablespoons of the mayonnaise, mix it with a little bit of ponzu, and put some sriracha in it, and mix these things up. I used to use a fork, and like you'd scramble an egg, just put it through there and mix it all up so there's no lumps left, and it makes a kind of smooth, spicy mayonnaise. This is a little something you can dip your pieces of sushi into before you eat them, or later on I'll show you, you can actually add it into your sushi while you are making it, and sometimes it makes like for a spicy roll if you don't want to soak your fish in something to make the fish spicy. You can still make a spicy roll if you use the spicy mayonnaise. So I embarked upon making my second roll of the night. Now for this one, I did not use as much nori. I peeled off at the perforation point a couple of slabs, which created a smaller piece, and that in turn led to me using less rice. So it actually came out a little better, the right size, the right shape, more of what I was expecting when I was thinking I'm going to make sushi. So if you see, I'd use less rice on this one, maybe 1 or 2 grains of rice thickness, so it wasn't quite so thick. I still had the little flap that I left so that it would have a little overlap at the end and help seal it after I rolled it up. And I added the avocado. You can see I made 2 more robust slices this time, a little more equal, so I didn't have one tiny slice and one big slice. That makes for a better looking result. And I added the cucumber all the way up to either end, and then added the tuna. As you can see, I tried to leave less space between the edge of what I had laid out and the parts that go inside, so that there wasn't a little gap on the end, so that the insides go all the way to the outside edge, and then rolled it up. Now this one I rolled by hand just like the other one, and it had some bulges. It didn't have a consistent diameter, so I did a trick that I saw on a video, and I took my bamboo roller, I laid it over the top, and I didn't want to squeeze it really hard. If you try to squeeze it too hard, then what's inside comes out, and it just kind of smushes it up, and you really don't want to smush it up too much when you're making the roll. So I just used the bamboo to give it a better shape, kind of pinch it around the bottom, to one start in the center and work your way to the outside, and give it a better shape and size. And when you take the bamboo off, it looks a little better. Then you cut it just like we did the last one. Cut it in half, turn the 2 halves together, cut those in half so that you now have quarters, and then cut each quarter in half, so you end up with 8 slices. I spaced these slices around the same plate that was now empty because I had already eaten the veggie roll that I made before, and I was very happy. I had some wasabi. It looked more like what I expected when I first embarked upon this project. It was much more visually appealing, the right amount of food inside, the right amount of rice, the size, the shape, everything was, I was very happy with the results here. And before I started on the next little part of my project, I went ahead and had a couple pieces. At this point, I was about halfway done with the night's project, and later on I made some sashimi and another roll using the crab stick and the spicy mayonnaise that I had mixed up. And when I finished out my ingredients, making a veggie roll with mango on top. But those will be the subject of another video.